A seed does not sprout in a spotlight, it grows underground. You want to understand the seed? Good. Then stop romanticizing the tree. Everyone loves the tree. Tall, visible, admired, photographed. No one kneels for the root. But the root is the entire story. A seed is buried. Darkness, pressure, isolation, no applause, no reassurance. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. If you stand above the soil and stare, you will see only dirt. And that is the point. Real growth is invisible at first. When a seed is placed underground, it splits, it breaks, its shell cracks open. If you judge that moment, you would call it distraction. But that cracking is the beginning. Now understand this in human terms. When you commit to real becoming, you will not feel powerful at first. You will feel confused, weak, uncertain, small. Old identities crack, old habits resist, old comforts dissolve. From the outside, it looks like regression. No applause, no visible proof, no instant validation. That is the underground pace. Now imagine placing a spotlight on the soil. Imagine digging the seed up every few days to check progress. You would kill it. Why? Because growth requires containment. It requires uninterrupted transformation. When you constantly expose your growth to light, to attention, to validation, to commentary, you interrupt the process. You start adjusting to the light. The seed begins growing toward visibility instead of downward toward stability, and a tree without roots falls in the first storm. That is what happens when becoming is tied to being seen. You grow upward fast, visible, impressive, public, but shallow. The first criticism, the first failure, the first rejection, and you collapse because you built height without depth. And the underground phase is not glamorous, it is lonely. You are working and no one knows. You are improving and no one praises. You are transforming and no one validates. Ego hates this stage. It whispers, announce it, post it, show them, let them see who you are becoming. But the moment you shift toward being seen, part of your energy leaves the root and goes to the spotlight. And roots require total commitment. Here is the deeper truth. The seed does not know it will become a tree. It simply responds to conditions. It pushes downward first, downward before upward. Why? Because stability precedes expansion, depth precedes visibility, substance precedes recognition. If you reverse the order, you create fragility. So when you are in darkness, when it feels slow, when it feels unseen, when it feels unrewarded, that may not be failure, that may be rooting. Do not confuse invisibility with stagnation. Some of the most powerful transformations happen when nothing appears to be happening. The question is simple. Are you willing to grow without witnesses? If yes, one day you will rise and people will call it sudden. It was not sudden, it was silent, and silence is where real trees are formed. There is enormous freedom in obscurity. A seed does not sprout in a spotlight, it grows underground. If you dig it up every day to show people, look, it's growing, you kill it. Most men keep digging up their own growth, posting, announcing, signaling, hinting, displaying. They interrupt their own formation. Silence, on the other hand, is a forge. When you are alone long enough, you begin to hear things you were avoiding. You see your laziness, you see your ego, you see your dependency, you see how much of you is performance. Isolation removes distraction. In distraction, you can pretend. In silence, you cannot. That is why silence clarifies. Listen, obscurity feels like insignificance to the ego. That is why you resist it. You equate being unseen with being unimportant. But obscurity is not insignificance. It is incubation. A child in the womb is unseen. Is it insignificant? No, it is forming organs. But imagine opening the womb every week to check progress, to take a photograph, to show relatives. Growth would collapse. That is what you do with your own becoming. You start lifting, you post, you start reading, you announce, you start earning, you hint, you start meditating, you signal, and the subtle shift happens. The work is no longer the work. The work becomes content. The gym becomes a stage. The book becomes a prop. The discipline becomes branding. And once it becomes branding, the motive is contaminated. You are no longer asking, is this making me stronger? You are asking, how does this look? That single shift kills depth. Because depth requires immersion, and immersion cannot exist when part of you is watching yourself perform. Silence is brutal because it removes witnesses. When there are no witnesses, there is no one to impress. And when there is no one to impress, all that remains is truth. Truth about your laziness. You say you are ambitious, but in silence, you notice how quickly you reach for distraction. Truth about your ego. You say you want mastery, but in silence, you notice you want admiration more. Truth about your dependency. You say you are independent, but in silence, you feel restless without validation. Distraction protects you from seeing this. Noise is mercy for the ego because as long as you are busy being seen, you never have to confront what you actually are. Isolation strips this protection. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even frightening, because you meet the parts of yourself you have been outrunning. But if you stay long enough, something shifts. The performance collapses, the need to signal weakens, the hunger for applause quiets, and for the first time, you begin to act without the ghost of an audience in your head. That is clarity. Clarity is not motivation. Clarity is not inspiration. Clarity is seeing without distortion, seeing your weakness without drama, seeing your strength without pride, seeing your motives without excuse. Silence is a forge because it burns impurities. Attention seeking burns away, pretending burns away, comparison burns away. What survives is simple. Do I want this? Even if no one knows? If the answer is yes, you continue. If the answer is no, you let it die. Most men are terrified of this test because many of their ambitions would not survive silence, and that is the real reason they keep digging up the seed. Not to show progress, but to avoid discovering that there was never real intent to grow. So understand this carefully. Obscurity is not hiding, it is hardening. Silence is not absence, it is refinement. And the man who can remain in darkness long enough to form emerges. Not loud, not dramatic, not hungry for approval, but solid. And solidity does not need to be seen. The end note is simple. If you want to become something real, you must be willing to disappear first. A seed accepts burial. It does not protest the darkness. It does not demand recognition. It does not ask the soil for applause. It goes down before it goes up. It strengthens what cannot be seen before revealing what can. Most people want sunlight without roots, recognition without formation, visibility without depth. So they force growth in the open. And what grows fast in the spotlight usually dies in the storm. The underground phase is not punishment, it is preparation. It is where your motives are purified. It is where ego cracks. It is where dependency weakens. It is where strength becomes structural, not performative. If you can endure obscurity without bitterness, silence without insecurity, and effort without acknowledgement, then when you rise, you will not need the light. You will withstand it. So the end note is this. Do not chase the spotlight. Chase the root. Because when the root is deep, the tree does not fear the wind. And when your becoming is deep, you will not need to be seen. You will simply stand.